Wow, we have a fantastic call lined up for you today. I sent a text out this morning to everybody to let you know about this young man. This young man he's with us every Wednesday in the month of March. He runs a top 100 company. Oh, Miss Eileen is just getting in. 1, 2, 3, everybody say good morning, Miss Eileen. Okay. Top 100 company in the United States, started his own company after making them a lot of money. He's also a great mentor for people, not only in Houston, Texas, but around the world. He's a great civic leader. He's been married to the same beautiful woman for all these years. His favorite book is the Bible of choice, and it talks about life and life in abundance. He was married to his childhood sweetheart. Like I said, he's just turned 55 years young, and he has a lot of wisdom. So be ready for this part, because last week, my God, what was highlight last week? Talk about the destination and where you're going. Always look at the beginning and value people, and he talked about he had value to people in Texas when during that storm they had down there. Did you call anybody if they had value, how they could lower their bills? I thought that was, man, that blessed me. Didn't Miss Kathleen Williams? It blessed me. And he also talked about leaders, master storytelling last week. See, I got my notes right here. Let me tell you what he talked about week before that. He talked about you need to become a valuable enough to the marketplace. I said, I got my notes right here on all the speakers. What about you? Without further ado, he hails from Houston, Texas, my dear friend, the one and only incomparable, the great Mr. Dwight Williams.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Thomas. How you doing today?
Oh man, I like that purple. Purple stands for royalty. I know I'm not telling you something you don't understand. Hey, I saw your twin today.
Huh?
There's your twin.
Yeah, he wish he looked this good. I am excited to be here this morning. It's a nice gray day here in Texas, Houston, Texas, and so I'm glad to be here. I'm excited for today's conversation. I'm just going to have a conversation, one that I've been having a lot lately, and so it's a plum pleasing pleasure to be invited to speak to you guys. I don't know. I hope everyone on here understands how important it is and what a privilege it is that Mr. Thomas invites me to speak to you guys. And I take it very seriously, and I thank him for that, because he's an accomplished gentleman. He's my mentor. I mean, just like you guys, he's my mentor. And so it is a privilege when your mentor asks you to come speak to his people. It says something about you as a person. So, Mr. Thomas, I want to say this to you, and I really want to thank you for the opportunity and the privilege to do this, because you could do it yourself, and any number of people that could do probably a better job than me. So I'm really thankful. And I want to say that, and I mean that, and I'm going to say that every single time, because it's important that I do that. I let people know to value the time that we get with surrounded by gentlemen like yourself of your caliber. So thank you, sir. Thank you, and I want to say that, and the same to you guys, man. Please leverage this gentleman as much as you can, any chance you get, and I see that you're doing it. Those of you who have been on this call this morning that are plugged in, that are consistent and committed, that's how you do it, and that's how you show that that you are committed. With that said, let's go ahead and get started. Today, I'm gonna talk about a subject that I talk about all the time, but I always lead with characters from my favorite book, who I use as inspiration for the subjects that I talk about. Today's character, I'm going to tell you, is a gentleman named Joseph. And Joseph is probably one of the greatest entrepreneurial minds that you can study in my favorite book, the Bible. But his story is a really his story is a really common story. and it's a story that many of us are going to be familiar with. The challenges that you face as you're building, the steps, and so we'll talk a little bit about we're going to have a conversation kind of about that journey. And so those of you who know this story, you know, he was the last, well, next to the last son of a man that had 12 kids, and I won't tell the story, but he was one of the two kids that the beloved wife gave him. And his younger brother she died having the younger brother. And as a result, but consequently, the father loved his mother. Matter of fact, he worked 7 years for her, and his own uncle tricked him, gave him the wrong woman, not the wrong woman. Let me not say that right. Let me get this right. I do not want to get in trouble on this call today. He didn't give him the woman the wife that he had originally promised him. And he had to work another 7 years. So he had to work 14 years for the woman that he loved, Rachel. And Rachel gave him two sons, and they were Joseph and Benjamin. And they were favored, and the other 10 brothers were jealous of that. And that created a rift among them, and Joseph paid the price for it. And you know, parents, we do crazy stuff. I mean, he gave because he loved Joseph, gave Joseph what they call the coat of many colors, and Joseph bragged about it. Hey, look at what I got. And of course, his brothers were jealous of him. Eventually, his brothers got him alone one day, and they betrayed him and sold him. And they were going to kill him, but they sold him into slavery. And sometimes these things happen to us in our journeys in life. And you know, you can see sold in slavery and all of that, this kinds of things, but we face challenges early in our lives. And one of the reasons Joseph is a phenomenal story for me is because no matter what he faced, and he faced a lot, let me tell you, I was really surprised. He never gave up. And one of the things I always say, there is only really one way to fail in doing anything you want to achieve, and it's commitment. And commitment meaning that you don't quit. You now quit doing what? So if I say, you know what, I'm not going to quit ACM, but I stop getting better, then I've effectively quit. Well, how do I get better? I surround myself by leaders like Mr. Thomas, Ms. Driscoll, Mr. Lewis, Ms. Ismail. When I surround myself by leaders who can improve and uplift the value that I can bring, that's how I get better. Joseph finds himself, you know, a prisoner and a slave in Egypt, and next thing you know, he's locked up, and he's always doing rare things. And that's one of the things that I challenge us. I always challenge us to be creative, no matter where we are in life. So we talk about the glass being half empty, the glass being half full. But no matter where you are in life, it is the one key element that you bring to the table is the way, your perspective, the way you look at where you are. One guy, what do they say? One man's trash is another man's treasure. And it's the same stuff. It's just one guy sees it as trash, the other guy sees it as treasure. Now you would say, in the literal sense, I don't know if you guys know this, but I forget how much this company makes. It does $500,000 a day, I think, something like that. Anybody ever heard of a company called Got Junk? This company is multi-billion-dollar company. Do you know what they do? They do exactly what I just said. They have monetized. I'm going to tell you very clearly, they have monetized what we take to the street as junk. They have turned into a multi-billion-dollar business. So one man's trash, me taking my old refrigerator to the street, becomes another man's treasure, him charging me to pick it up. And it's really as simple as that. And that's one of the things Joseph was able to do. No matter what situation he found himself in, he was able to find ways to, he, now, well, I'm getting ahead of myself, so I don't want to do that. So life is going to continue to present you opportunities. Your perspective is how you see, is the thing that governs how you see the opportunity. So me taking my old refrigerator to the street, my perspective of that refrigerator is trash. Me taking that same refrigerator to the street, he saw it as wealth building. And that's the difference. How many opportunities have come across our way? And because of the way we were looking, or the perspective of our mindset, we saw it as trash instead of treasure. How many times have we missed treasure sit right back in front of us, and we missed it because of the way where we were mindset wise? So that's why my favorite book says, when you're dealing and you're trying to decide what to think, he says, think on things that are lovely, think on things that are pure, think on these things. And if there be no virtue, if there be no, he says, think on these things that are uplifting, that keep us positive, that make sure that our vision of when opportunities come is clear, that we see it and we don't miss it. So he ends up locked up, and he interprets a dream, and in prison. And I'm gonna make a long story short. As a result of that interpretation, it lands him in the king's quarters. He ends up, you got to imagine this now. He's a slave that goes from prison to the palace. And you would say, oh, that's an awesome story. No, it's only a story of mindset. It's the same story that each one of us can have in anything we do, because our mindset is everything with regards to the outcomes that we live under. So whatever circumstance or situation I find myself in, it is a product of the way I think. And I know my favorite book, again, goes back. It says, as a man thinketh in his heart. Now, most people miss that in his heart part, because I can think at the head level, but the Bible is really saying, as I have internalized thought to belief and faith, that's the outcome that I will live under. I live under what I believe. And so as a man thinketh in his heart, that's who that man is. So many years ago, I studied these scriptures. I'd heard them all my life. And so, but I'm gonna say something, and I hope it doesn't come across blasphemous, and I hope you don't get mad at me. I'm a strange person. I don't just do things just to say I did them. And I made a decision a long time ago that if the Bible wasn't true, I wasn't gonna mess around with that. I'm not gonna spend my life messing with something that don't produce results. I just wasn't gonna do it. And but I also realized that if I were really gonna take that position, then I had to do my part with regards to believing it and walking it by faith. And I began to do that. And as a result, everything that it says was true. I never had an outcome that was counter to that book, but the requirements that it had on me seems extreme at some, but I can tell you every single time the outcomes were exactly what they said they were going to be. And what I realized when I look back on the failures and the things that I had dealt in life and brought me to question, that the problem never was the Bible. It was always me. I never did everything I was supposed to do. But I still decided to blame it, because that's what happens when you have that mindset. that mindset always looks to pass off the negative that it deals with to somebody else, to blame somebody else. It never takes responsibility for it. So when I started, I wanted to blame God. God, it's your fault. Like Adam said, hey, there's that woman you gave me. That wasn't me. I didn't do it. I just ate it because she made me eat it. But I didn't ask for it. You gave it to me. So it ain't my fault. It's your fault. So, and that's what we do when we caught and we don't want to, and we have that mindset. We want to pass blame off to somebody else. But leaders don't do that. Champions don't do that. Champions absorb and assume responsibility for everything they do. And when I begin to do that, I begin to see a difference and a change in my life. So go back to Joseph. He ends up in the palace. Something happens with the Pharaoh's wife, and she accuses him, and he doesn't do it, and he ends up back in prison again. And then so the next Pharaoh is a different guy. Comes along many years later. So Joseph is locked in prison, and he meets two guys. He meets a butcher and a baker, and he told I forget the order. I think it was the butcher was the first one. He told the butcher, he said, "Hey, I'm gonna interpret this deal for you," and he says, in a few days you're gonna lose your head, and it actually happens. He said, and then he interprets for the baker. He says, "Hey, you're going to get released and you're going to end up." And so the baker gets out and he gets released. He says, "But don't forget me." He says, "When you get out, remember me." And he forgets him for years. And there comes a day when the Pharaoh is having these dreams, and he needs his dreams interpreted. And the word gets out, and the baker says, "Hey, guess what? I know a guy that interprets dreams." And this is many years. He forgot him, but he did finally remember him. And they brought him out. He went in. He ends up he interprets the dream. He protects Egypt from famine. But what often is never told about Joseph is that he was an incredible engineer. Joseph was an engineer. He engineered water systems in Egypt. He engineered grain silos and storage systems for the Egyptian economy that saved that region from famine. And he was an entrepreneur. He was an incredible entrepreneur. The Bible calls him a satrap, or he becomes one of the mayors or leaders of that area at that time. So I always talk about his story from prison to palace, and this is our story as entrepreneurs. The journey of an entrepreneur is not a simple journey. It's not an easy journey, but it is a worthwhile journey. And it is a journey that I wouldn't do anything else but this. And I have failed many, many times, and have faced many, many challenges. But I've also been an employee. I've been self-employed. I've been a business owner. I've been all of these things, and I've been a contractor. And so when I look at all of the things, the lifestyle that I admire the most, the lifestyle that is most admirable to me, is Mr. Thomas's lifestyle. One of freedom. Well, I mean, look at it. He doesn't have to do this. I mean, he's in Vegas, man. He could be out there hanging out at the casinos, flipping that money a few times every day. But he's not. He's out here doing the thing when you become a leader, I promise you, this is the thing you're going to want to do, is help other people become leaders. It's addictive. I mean, you won't get enough of it. I mean, because this is, and I'm gonna tell you, my greatest attraction to this industry, through its personal development and its leadership development, is that the individuals that rise to the highest levels in here, yes, they're flawed and they got issues, but they help a lot of people not just discover money or make money. They help people find the gifts and the skills and the abilities that were in them that they would have not otherwise found. And that's the greatest thing. When I look at secular business and economics, its job is to leverage me, and we're about to talk about that. And the reason I told the story about Joseph was I want to kind of talk about the entrepreneurial spirit. To be an entrepreneur is an incredible thing, and it has a lot of responsibility that goes along with it, as you see with Mr. Thomas, because we invest. Now, there are different ways to have a business. You can have a traditional business where you're looking to gain leverage, and I love the word leverage. And if you and I know I'm going to assume Mr. Lewis, he understands this word leverage, because the lever is an engineering concept. It's a basic mechanism in engineering, and it has two things. It has some people call it force, but the word I love is it has effort on one end of it, and on the other end it has load, which is the amount of production that it can create. And in between it is the fulcrum, which is if you've ever seen a seesaw is the perfect example of a lever. In the middle is your fulcrum, and that's where all of the weight is carried, and that's where the risk is carried. Now, the further you move the effort away from the load, the more load you can move. This is why corporations work. This is why secular business works, because the CEO is many layers away from where the work is actually done. Therefore, he gains a massive amount of leverage. And so take Amazon. Amazon has 1.3 million employees. Now, I don't want you, I'm not complaining or criticizing any of this. It's just a model. It's just not my model. This is not the model. This is not the way I want to work. Even though I own a traditional business, I've done everything we could to try and get our people to begin to think as entrepreneurs and instead of employees. And many have gone on, but most stay. And I don't criticize anybody for wanting to be an employer or being employed. I hope over time, as we get exposed and develop, we begin to move into different ways. But the trick about the leverage is, because I can, with the word lever means to raise lightly, meaning it's for me to be able to gain a significant amount of value with very little effort. And so take the traditional relationship between employer and employee. His only leverage, his leverage is the money, the salary, the check he pays. So what he tries to do is pay as little of a check to the employee to where he gets the maximum amount of productivity. That is, now, you can't be mad at the equation, because it just simply is what it is. And so many people say, I just don't think that's a good system. But I don't see you can't say it's a flawed system, because the problem is what am I worth? You work what the next guy is willing to take relative to you. So if I'm being paid, if you're being paid 15 bucks an hour and a guy will get 12 and he'll outwork me, or at least do what I'm worth, that guy, the job is now worth 12 bucks. It's not worth 15 anymore. And the guy with the leverage is always looking, and he should be, to get, for the minimal amount of cost, I want to get the greatest amount of value. And that's what it is. And that's what leverage is. Now, the difference in our industry and that industry, same equation, but the difference is we move the lever, the fulcrum, in the middle, where the effort and the load are balanced, where we work together with the people that we work with to both create value together. Traditional secular business is not designed that way. Their goal is to produce pure profits to the bottom line. And the more profit I produce to the bottom line, the more I make. Whereas in this industry, the more I help you make, the more all of us make. This was my attraction to this industry. And this is why I love this business. My entrepreneurial spirit has always looked, when I was an employee, I hated the employee model. I didn't like being an employee. I wasn't mad at my employer when I was made, and I've mentioned this before. I knew my numbers. I was doing about 2 million a year as an individual. He's paying me 90 grand. Most people would say that was good money for a 20-year-old. For me, it was all relative. 20-year-old, I don't care if I was 15. I'm going to ask you for 10%, 15%. I'm going to ask you for 30%. I'm going to do the same thing you're doing because I'm always trying to balance the equation. And when he told me, he says, hey, you know what, Dwight? You know why you pay me so much money more than you know why I make more than you? Is because I absorb the risk so you can get your paycheck. Well, when he told me that, I was like, oh, I don't need you to do that for me anymore. I was gone. I was gone within a matter of months. Why? Because I don't need you to take the risk for me. I can take my own risk. But that's really the relationship. I'm paying you to absorb risk for me. I don't need to pay you for that. I can do that for myself. But that's why the further I move that fulcrum over gives them more leverage. And the way they get leverage is they pay for my time. And by paying for my time, the only thing they have to do is if they pay me $10 or $15 or $20 an hour, they just need to make sure that they make 50 on me. That's all that matters. They get productivity multiple times what it costs. So, and that business works. And it worked. And I'm not going to criticize it. I've had people ask me all the time, says, why should I do a business versus just getting a job? Hey, man, I'm not going to tell you not to get a job. You know why? Getting a job is popular because it's easier than running a business. Let's be very clear. It's easier to get a job than it is to run a business. But know this, the guy that you're working for got a business. He didn't get a job. So the smart person asks themselves, hey, before I make this decision too quickly or too easily, I may want to rethink. Why did he decide not to get a job, but decided to give me a job? Because he wanted leverage. That's why. And so there must be some benefit to having leverage. And that's the beauty of this industry, because it gives you the best of both worlds. It gives you the ability to help build people while at the same time gaining leverage. But you're helping other people gain leverage as well. And that's why I fell in love with this industry. Because it gives me the best balance to help the people that I work with gain the same freedom that I desire. Instead of me designing a system that I gain my freedom on the backs of other people who work for me. I never was comfortable with that. I just wasn't. Because I had been an employee and I didn't like it when I was one. And so I never really wanted people to be employed by me. But I will say this. So for those people who do work for us, we set out to create as much value to the bottom line for our employees as we possibly could. And not only for the employees, but for the people that they serve and take care of. And so we do the best we can and we keep it moving. But building in this industry has really been a blessing to us. Now, the benefit of having a job is easy. Jobs are easy, but the problem is you don't have any leverage. With a business, you have leverage, but you have risk. Now, with businesses, there is risk. But the beauty of this industry, very little capital upfront. So take a company. I was telling you about Jeff Bezos earlier. Jeff Bezos is the richest man on the planet. Why? Because he has a massive amount of leverage. He has more leverage than anybody else. So he has 1.3 million employees. He hired. Now, watch, I want to show you the power of leverage. Watch what Jeff Bezos does during a pandemic. So before the pandemic, Jeff Bezos had 800 or almost 900,000 employees. He hires over 400,000 new employees during the pandemic. That's what leverage gives you the ability to do. Well, why would he be able to do that? Help me understand, Dwight. Because the pandemic drove rates down. People needed jobs because they were being terminated from other jobs. So now I can pay less money for the same effort. So what used to cost me two people, what it used to cost me for one person, now I can get 1.5, 1.25, 1 or 2. That's the power of that kind of leverage. That's the power of business. Now, Elon Musk is the second richest man. Guess how many employees he has? He doesn't have 71,000 employees. He's got about 70,700. So you would say, well, what's the difference? Well, the difference is Elon Musk uses robots, lots of automation and mechanics to do the work for him. So he gains leverage through a combination of employees and things that don't require people. machines. And he gets similar production. Now, we as network marketers build our businesses helping people build their businesses. That's how we create value. We create value for ourselves by creating value for others. So people will always ask me so when I'm having conversations with individuals about the business, notice I never say when I'm talking to somebody about joining the business, I never do that. I have conversations with people in different settings. So if I'm recently, I had a conversation with a young lady at a restaurant a couple of weeks ago, not even 2 weeks ago, and she was 21 years old. And she moved here from Lake Charles, running from a storm on her own, and got her an apartment. Had some money saved, got her a job, and was working for around $3 an hour at a restaurant, serving at a restaurant. And so I was just talking to her, and I always when I pull up to a restaurant, I always start. My family hates going out to eat with me because I harass people. I harass people to death. When I walk up, I says, I'm letting you know I'm hungry. I'm going to eat a lot of stuff, and I don't have any money. But you got a lot of people in this restaurant. You can charge each one of the people in here $1, and that will cover my cost. Why? Why do I do that? Because most people, when they go to restaurants, they treat people like they're servants. Hey, get me my food, bring me the menu, do this for me. Here's my check. Here's a pay. I give you 10%. Yeah, did a good job, blah, blah, blah. They don't treat people like people. Well, we are networkers. We talk to everybody. Everybody is a person to us. Everybody is somebody that not to get in our business, everybody is somebody that we want to interact with. I want to talk to you. I want to hear what you do. I am interested in what you're doing. I'm interested in you. And by being interested in them, they become interested. So people ask me all the time, let me ask you a question. How long does it take to build a relationship? So everybody, the first thing they say, how much money can I make? They can make it whatever you want. You make however much money you want to make. Oh, this sounds like a scam. It is exactly a scam. You know what? You can talk crazy because I just love to talk. It's a scam if you believe it is. And it's a scam that pays me a lot of money. So if I got a scam that pays me a lot of money, that's exactly what I want to be doing. Is a scam. So this is because and so you get their attention because we have been conditioned. The secular system has conditioned us to think a certain way. We've been to school. We were told, go, get a good education so you can get a good job, so you buy a house with a white picket fence so you can retire. Retire, the very word means die. That's why most people die when they retire. Why would I ever retire? Bible tells me to occupy till he comes, but I'm going to retire. Why would I even retire for something I love to do? Well, then why am I doing something that I don't love to do? And I love communicating with people. I love sitting down. I love talking to them. So when I go places, I don't go places hunting people down. I go places, people come to you and they speak to me, I speak back to them. But I don't just simply say, hey, ring this up and I'm gonna pay you this $20 so I can get this thing. Hey girl, how's your day going? What's the weather like? How did y'all make it through the cold? Were y'all all right getting through the cold? And they're shocked to death. Why? Because they've already checked out 100 other people and not one of them said anything to them. Not one of them spoke to them or said anything. But so we want the easy way. How do I make a lot of money in this industry? Create a lot of value. That's in everything. What do you mean that's in everything? You're on a job right now, you want to make more money, go create more value. How would that work? Well, let's say, for instance, they're going to fire a bunch of people. So let's say they're going to wipe out your department, but you're the person that provides the most value. You're not even the manager. You're just one of the workers, but you provide more value than the manager does. Who do you think they're going to fire? I can go ahead and tell you, because in the end, what did I say? It's about at least amount of effort to produce the greatest amount of return. Am I right? That is a basic equation. You just got to be the guy producing the most return. It's as simple as that. We complicate things. We really complicate things. That's why this industry is another reason. This industry is more more attractive. Why? Because in secular business, I don't have control over my bottom line. But in this business, I have 100% pure control over my bottom line. My check. So when people ask me how much money can I make, more than you making right now? Oh, I'm a lawyer. I make a lot of money. Do you really? You make a lot of money, huh? So you're a lawyer and you make a lot of money because you're more valuable than everybody else in this economy? Uh, I wouldn't say that. Absolutely not. You went to school 10 years, 12 years, 15 years, more than they did. So you created 10 to 12, 15 years more debt than they created that you got to pay back. And when you got into your internship, you worked 2, 3, 4, 5 years for nearly nothing. So you could get positioned to get a job to pay you 6 figures, $300,000. Well, they got, why I pay you $300,000 too? Because why? I got to pay you for the 20 years you already got invested. That's why you're making so much money. You're making so much money because you've invested so many years already. So the net effect over time ain't as much as you think it is. But most of us don't have the ability to do the math on that equation. So when I talk to doctors and I talk to lawyers, I know they don't understand the equation of business. And so it's easy to have the conversation. I've been doing this over 30 years. And so for me to have a conversation with those guys and they try to convince me that the return on investment is this, and you don't know the return on investment, because have you even factored in the cost of education and the cost of time you did in internship? You absolutely have not. No matter what, there's something that you must know, that there's a scripture in the Bible that says, be not deceived, God is not mocked. Whatever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. So that is an accounting equation. What it's saying is all of creation will balance itself out. You're going to contribute X amount of value and you're going to be paid for that X amount of value. So some people say, man, I'm not as worth as much. Yeah, you're worth as much. You just haven't put the effort they put in. They did the 15 years. That's why he's making the 300,000 now. He put the 15 years in and then he fired. So you weren't willing to do that. Well, that wasn't my gift. No matter what, it was his gift and he did it. You haven't yet. That doesn't mean you can't. You can still go do something that can produce us. You may be an engineer. Look at Mr. Lewis. Mr. Lewis is an engineer, and he's an engineer that understands, looked at the leverage equation and said, you know what? I'm in the wrong place, making somebody else rich. I'm looking at, I got an A in the class that taught me about leverage, and I'm being leveraged. This is not going to work for me. And made a clear decision to make a change. That's how we have to think. And we have to be that way as Napoleon Hill said something very, very simple. It's on the title of the book. He says, you know what? You have to think to grow rich. If you don't think, you won't grow rich. And many of us, why do we choose the path we choose? I tell people all the time, and people talk to me, people come to me all the time and say, man, poverty is what? And I'm not knocking it. Poverty is a real challenge, but I want to say something. I really want to provoke your thought though. People are poor because poverty, in many cases, it's easier to be poor than it is to be rich. Rich requires discipline. Rich requires work. And so just like I say, hey man, I don't want to be meeting people and talking to people, trying to sell people stuff. I don't want to do that. I'm just going to go get a job. Why? Because jobs are easier. Getting a job, letting somebody else be responsible for me is easier than me being responsible for myself. Everybody say they want freedom. They assume freedom is once I get free, it's just going to rain down. No, freedom is more responsibility, not less responsibility. The difference between freedom and slavery is that slavery, somebody else tells you what to do. Freedom, you decide yourself what to do. Freedom is not you just being able to do whatever you want. Freedom is you being able to choose the rules and responsibilities that you live up under instead of somebody else doing it for you. It's the only difference. So when I'm talking to individuals, let's take money, for example, and I'm going to end right here. People, they ask me all the time, so, I mean, how much money do you make? Much as I want. You ain't finna trip me up on no answer. What is that? More than you making? And that's when they get offended. Now, I'm not talking about an amount. And I always tell the person, I wasn't criticizing you trying to talk to you about an amount. There's a reason I said to you more than you're making, because it's a concept that I want you to get. Two things to note. Look at what you're doing. Look at what I'm doing. You need to pay attention. The second thing, notice you're asking me what I make. I'm not asking you what you make. You may want to think about that, and it provokes thought. It's not a criticism. I'm never trying to criticize the person. I'm talking to that person because I care. I took the time to speak because I care. But if I truly care, then I'm gonna do the same kind of stuff. Jesus was the greatest networker to ever live, and he was as provocative as you could possibly be. A rich man walks up to him and says, "Hey, I want to do what them disciples is doing with you. I want to hang with you boys. And I'm ready to go. I'm ready to get in here and do this." Really? That's what you're really ready to do? I'm ready. Jesus was a great networker. People tell me that all the time. "Mr. Dwight, I don't know how you do that, but I need to hang with you." Really? That's what you need to do? Yep. I need to hang with you. I just need to spend time. Okay, I'll be here in the morning at 6:00. We'll see if you mean what you say. People always talk because I'm always testing to see if people mean what they say, because they don't. People wonder, why am I not achieving the goals in my life? Because you're not doing the things necessary. You're not willing to do what it takes to do it. So, but Mr. Dwight, I want to be like you. Okay, see you there at 6:00 in the morning. Oh, no, I get up at 11. Well, then you don't want to be like me. Let's be honest, because those are two different things. And so Jesus said, "Hey, sell everything you got, give it to the poor. You come on hanging with us." And matter of fact, can you do that in about an hour? Because we're ready to roll. Every movie that I've seen with that scene in it, the camera begins to pan out. Jesus keeps on moving. That dude stays still. He stands there, and the crowd moves away from him. He's standing there by himself. Is he why? Because he wasn't doing nothing but talking. And most of the people we're going to deal with ain't doing nothing but talking. Make sure it's not you, though. Everything you see and believe is achievable. Promise you that. Matter of fact, if I was to tell you what I truly believe about faith, you only have the thought or the dream to do it because you were designed to do it. God wouldn't have ever given you a thought or dream or goal or vision that he wasn't planning on making come true. If you're looking at the screen and you look across all the people that's on your screen, all of them have different visions and goals for their lives. Where do you think they came from? Where do you think those visions and goals came from? And you think he didn't have it? And they evolve over time. Some grow, some expand, some morph, some evolve, some change. But no matter what, he's guiding us every step along the way toward what he created us fulfilled, what our fulfillment in life looks for. You know who messes us up, who gets us off track, is us. With all of this stuff that stops us, taking the easy path, seeking safety, finding the comfortable path. What does comfort have to do with anything for us? Nothing. We weren't designed to be comfortable. We were designed to be the fulfillment of what he created us for. And every one of us has that sense of a feeling of a dream or something deep inside that we know is bigger, and sometimes it scares us to death. But he didn't give us the spirit of fear, did he? But of love, power to do whatever he designed us to do, and the ability mentally to achieve it. The only person that gets in our way is us.